Ladies and gentlemen, there are moments in life when the greatest battles are not fought in the open, but quietly in the hidden corners of our relationships. Not every smile you see carries sincerity. Not every voice that comforts you is sent to strengthen you. And not every presence in your life is there to help you grow. Some are sent to distract, to drain, and to derail your purpose. You must understand this truth. Not every enemy comes with horns, and not every danger announces itself loudly. Sometimes, what works against you comes dressed in familiarity. It may sit at your table, call you by your name, and even claim to love you. But the real question is not what they say it, is what their presence produces in your life. You see, anything that consistently pulls you away from peace, purpose, and growth should never be ignored. There are forces that operate through attitudes, behaviors, and patterns. They don't need to shout to be effective. They work subtly through negativity, manipulation, jealousy, and confusion. And if you are not spiritually and emotionally alert, you will begin to normalize what is actually harming you. Pay attention to how you feel after spending time with certain people. Do you feel uplifted, encouraged, and clear-minded? Or do you feel drained, doubtful, and heavy? Because energy does not lie. A person can speak kind words, but if their presence leaves you feeling broken inside, something is not right. What flows out of someone reveals what lives within them. There are individuals who will constantly discourage your progress. The moment you begin to step into something greater, they subtly plant seeds of fear. They may say, "Be careful," or "That might not work," or "You're aiming too high." It sounds like concern, but it feels like limitation. Understand the difference. True support strengthens your faith. Hidden opposition weakens your confidence. Then there are those who thrive on conflict. Wherever they go, confusion follows. They twist words, create misunderstandings, and keep relationships unstable. You find yourself constantly explaining, defending, or fixing things that were never broken. That is not peace. That is disturbance. And anything that constantly disrupts your inner peace is not aligned with your well-being. You must also be aware of silent jealousy. Not everyone who claps for you is happy for you. Some celebrate you publicly but resent you privately. You'll notice it in small ways: the lack of enthusiasm when you share good news, the subtle comparisons, the backhanded compliments. Instead of feeling joy for your growth, they feel threatened by it. And that quiet resentment can slowly turn into actions that hold you back. Another sign you must never ignore is manipulation. These individuals know how to use emotions as tools. They make you feel guilty for choosing yourself. They make you feel responsible for their happiness. They twist situations so that you always end up apologizing even when you've done nothing wrong. And over time, you begin to lose your sense of clarity and self-worth. Ladies and gentlemen, anything that causes you to doubt your value, question your purpose, and abandon your peace is not something to entertain, it is something to recognize. Because what you tolerate, you eventually become comfortable with. And what you become comfortable with can slowly destroy you. You were not created to live in confusion. You were not designed to constantly feel heavy, anxious, or uncertain. There is a peace that belongs to you. There is a clarity that belongs to you. And an yon or anything that consistently takes that away should be evaluated with wisdom. Now listen carefully. This is not about judging people harshly or walking around with suspicion in your heart. This is about awareness. It is about understanding that you have a responsibility to protect your mind, your spirit, and your direction in life. Because if you don't guard what has been given to you, someone else will misuse it. Sometimes the hardest truth to accept is that not everyone can go where you are going. Growth requires separation. Elevation requires discernment. And peace often requires distance. You cannot carry everything and everyone into your next level. Some connections must be limited, and some must be released entirely. And yes, it can be painful. It can be difficult to create boundaries with people you care about. But understand, this love does not mean losing yourself. Caring for others does not mean allowing them to damage you. There is a difference between helping someone and being harmed by someone. If a relationship constantly pulls you away from who you are meant to be, you must have the courage to step back. Not out of anger, not out of hatred, but out of wisdom. Because protecting your peace is not selfish, it is necessary. You must become sensitive to patterns, not just moments. Anyone can have a bad day. Anyone can make a mistake. But patterns reveal intentions. If negativity, manipulation, and conflict are consistent, then it is not accidental, it is a reflection of what is rooted within that person. And here is something powerful you must remember. Light does not struggle to exist, it simply shines. When you walk in clarity, when you stand in truth, and when you guard your peace, anything that operates in darkness will eventually expose itself. You don't have to chase it. You don't have to fight it constantly. You simply have to stay aligned with what is right. So be watchful, be wise, be grounded, not fearful but aware, because your life has purpose, your journey has direction, and your peace has value. Do not allow hidden negativity to rob you of what has been placed inside you. One of the most important skills you can develop in life is the ability to discern people, not by what they say, but by what their presence produces in your life. Words are easy. Anyone can speak kindly, offer compliments, or make promises that sound sincere. But words by themselves are not proof of good intentions. What truly matters is the consistent impact someone has on your mind, your emotions, and your direction. You may encounter people who speak with warmth and encouragement, yet after spending time with them, you feel uncertain within yourself. Your confidence begins to shrink. Your focus becomes scattered. You start questioning decisions you were once sure about. That shift does not happen by accident. It is often the result of subtle influence that works beneath the surface, shaping how you think and feel without drawing attention to itself. There are individuals who know how to say all the right things, but their presence carries an undercurrent of negativity. They may not openly criticize you, but their tone, their reactions, and their energy quietly pull you down. You might notice that when you share your goals, they respond with hesitation instead of excitement. When you express joy, they seem distant instead of supportive. These are small signals, but they reveal a deeper truth about what is really flowing from within them. It is important to understand that people can mask their true influence for a long time. They can present themselves as caring, loyal, and supportive, while their actions and patterns tell a completely different story. That is why you must learn to observe outcomes instead of relying solely on appearances. If someone consistently leaves you feeling drained, confused, or emotionally heavy, that impact speaks louder than anything they could ever say. Your inner state is like a compass. It responds honestly to the environments and people around you. When you are in the presence of someone who genuinely supports your growth, you will feel strengthened. Your mind will feel clearer. Your motivation will rise. There will be a sense of peace and alignment that confirms you are in a healthy space. But when the opposite happens repeatedly, it is a signal that something is out of place. Sometimes the influence is not obvious at first. It can come through small, repeated interactions that slowly shift your mindset. A comment here, a doubtful remark there, a subtle comparison that makes you question your worth. Over time, these moments accumulate, creating an internal environment filled with uncertainty. You begin to second-guess yourself, not because you are incapable, but because the influence around you is quietly eroding your confidence. It is also possible for someone to support you only when you are not growing beyond them. They may seem comfortable when you are at a certain level, but the moment you begin to rise, their behavior changes. Their encouragement becomes limited. Their interest fades. Their words may still sound polite, but the energy behind them is no longer genuine. This is why impact matters more than language, because language can be controlled, but impact reveals truth. Learning to discern in this way requires honesty with yourself. It requires you to stop making excuses for how people make you feel. It requires you to acknowledge patterns instead of dismissing them as isolated incidents. Because when something negative happens once, it may be a mistake. But when it happens repeatedly, it becomes a pattern, and patterns always point to something deeper. When you begin to evaluate relationships based on their impact, you gain clarity. You stop being easily misled by surface-level kindness, and you start paying attention to the deeper effect people have on your life. This awareness allows you to make better decisions about who you trust, who you listen to, and who you allow close to your personal space. Your peace, your confidence, and your sense of direction are too valuable to be influenced carelessly. They are not meant to be shaped by every voice that enters your life. They are meant to be protected with intention and awareness. And the moment you start focusing on what people produce in your life rather than what they promise, you begin to see with a level of clarity that cannot be easily deceived. It is not enough to notice how people make you feel in isolated moments. You must learn to recognize patterns that repeat over time. Harmful influence rarely shows itself in one dramatic event. Instead, it appears in consistent behaviors that quietly shape your thinking, your emotions, and your decisions. These patterns may seem small at first, but their repetition gives them power. What happens occasionally can be overlooked, but what happens consistently must be understood. Negativity is often one of the earliest signs. This does not always come in the form of obvious criticism or harsh words. Sometimes it is subtler ongoing tendency to focus on problems rather than possibilities, to highlight risks instead of opportunities, to question your direction instead of supporting it. When you are surrounded by this kind of mindset, it begins to influence your own thinking. You may start to doubt ideas that once inspired you. You may hesitate to take steps that once felt right. Over time, constant exposure to negativity can reshape your outlook without you even realizing it. Another pattern to watch closely is manipulation. This is not always aggressive or direct. In many cases, it is emotional and quiet. A person may use guilt to control your choices, making you feel responsible for their feelings or reactions. They may shift blame in subtle ways, causing you to question your own judgment. You may find yourself apologizing often, even when you are not sure what you did wrong. This repeated cycle creates confusion, and confusion is one of the most effective ways to weaken clarity and confidence. Jealousy is another pattern that often hides behind polite behavior. It does not always reveal itself openly. Instead, it shows up through comparison, subtle competition, or a lack of genuine enthusiasm for your progress. You may notice that your achievements are minimized or quickly redirected to someone else's success. You may feel that your growth creates discomfort rather than celebration. Over time, this creates an environment where you feel hesitant to share your wins, as if your progress is something that needs to be reduced rather than appreciated. Conflict is also a strong indicator of harmful patterns when it becomes constant and unnecessary. There are people who seem to carry confusion with them wherever they go. Conversations turn into arguments. Simple situations become complicated. Misunderstandings happen repeatedly, even when there is no clear reason for them. You may find yourself constantly explaining your intentions, trying to clarify things that should have been simple. This ongoing tension is not random. It reflects a deeper pattern that disrupts stability and peace. It is important to understand that patterns are more revealing than promises. Anyone can say they care, support, or want the best for you. But if their actions repeatedly produce stress, doubt, and instability, then their behavior is telling a different story. Patterns remove the illusion that words can create. They expose what is consistent, and consistency always points to what is real. Recognizing these patterns requires patience and honesty. You must be willing to step back and observe without making excuses. It can be tempting to justify someone's behavior, especially if they are close to you. You may tell yourself they did not mean it that way, or that they are just going through something. While understanding others is important, ignoring repeated harmful behavior is not wisdom, it is avoidance. As you become more aware of these patterns, you begin to see connections more clearly. You start to notice how certain interactions lead to certain feelings. You recognize how repeated exposure to specific behaviors affects your mindset. This awareness allows you to respond with clarity instead of confusion. Instead of reacting emotionally in the moment, you begin to understand the bigger picture. Once you identify these patterns, you are in a position to make decisions that protect your well-being. You can choose how much access someone has to your thoughts, your time, and your energy. You can decide when to step back, when to limit interaction, and when to create distance. This is not about reacting with anger or resentment, but about responding with awareness and intention. When you ignore patterns, you place yourself in a cycle that repeats itself. The same conversations, the same feelings, the same outcomes continue to appear. But when you recognize patterns for what they are, you break that cycle. You step out of confusion and into clarity. And with that clarity comes the ability to guard your peace, maintain your focus, and move forward without being constantly pulled backward by influences that do not align with your growth. Protecting your peace is one of the most important responsibilities you have, yet it is often the most overlooked. Many people are taught to prioritize others, to keep the harmony, to avoid conflict at all costs. But in doing so, they allow their inner stability to be slowly disturbed. Peace is not something that just happens, it is something that must be guarded with awareness, intention, and discipline. And one of the most powerful ways to protect it is by establishing clear and healthy boundaries. Boundaries are not walls built out of anger, they are lines drawn with wisdom. They define what you allow and what you no longer accept. Without boundaries, you give others unlimited access to your time, your energy, and your emotional space. Over time, this can leave you feeling overwhelmed, drained, and disconnected from yourself. But when you begin to set limits, you take back control of your environment and your inner state. It is important to understand that not everyone will understand or appreciate your boundaries. Some people have become comfortable with having unrestricted access to you. They are used to your availability, your agreement, and your willingness to adjust for them. The moment you begin to change that pattern, you may face resistance. You may be questioned, misunderstood, or even criticized. But their reaction does not determine whether your boundary is right. Your well-being does. Setting boundaries requires clarity about what affects you negatively. You must be honest with yourself about what drains your energy, what disrupts your focus, and what disturbs your peace. This awareness allows you to make decisions that align with your needs instead of constantly reacting to the expectations of others. When you know what you need to protect, it becomes easier to act with confidence rather than hesitation. Sometimes protecting your peace means limiting conversations. There are topics that lead to unnecessary conflict or emotional exhaustion, and you have the right to step away from them. You do not have to engage in every argument, respond to every comment, or explain every decision. Silence can be a form of strength when it is used with intention. In other situations, it may mean reducing the amount of time you spend with certain individuals. If someone consistently brings negativity, confusion, or pressure into your life, creating distance is not rejection, that is protection. You are not responsible for carrying the weight of someone else's behavior, especially when it comes at the cost of your own stability. Choosing space can give you the clarity you need to think, reflect, and realign yourself. There are also moments when stronger action is necessary. Some relationships may need to be redefined or even released completely. This is never an easy decision, especially when history, emotions, or family ties are involved. But staying in a situation that consistently harms your peace will eventually affect every area of your life. Your focus will weaken, your confidence will decline, and your sense of direction will become unclear. Protecting your peace sometimes requires the courage to let go. Wisdom plays a crucial role in this process. It is not just about reacting to what you feel in the moment, but about making thoughtful decisions based on patterns and long-term impact. Wisdom helps you recognize when to speak and when to remain quiet, when to stay and when to step away. It allows you to act with intention rather than impulse. It is also important to release the guilt that often comes with setting boundaries. You may feel like you are being selfish or uncaring, especially if you are used to putting others first. But protecting your peace is not an act of selfishness, it is an act of responsibility. When you are mentally and emotionally stable, you are in a better position to handle challenges, make clear decisions, and contribute positively to the lives of others. As you continue to practice setting boundaries, you will notice a shift within yourself. Your thoughts will become clearer. Your emotions will feel more balanced. You will no longer feel pulled in multiple directions by every external influence. Instead, you will develop a sense of stability that allows you to move forward with confidence. See and focus. This process is not about shutting people out. It is about letting the right influences in while keeping harmful ones at a distance. It is about choosing environments and relationships that support your growth rather than hinder it. And as you protect your peace with intention and wisdom, you create a foundation that allows you to live with clarity, strength, and purpose. There is a powerful truth that many people overlook. You cannot fully step into a higher level of life while holding on to everything from your past. Growth is not just about adding new habits, new goals, or new opportunities. It is also about letting go. And one of the most difficult aspects of this process is accepting that not everyone can go with you on the journey ahead. As you begin to grow, your mindset changes. Your priorities shift. What once felt comfortable may no longer feel right. Conversations that once entertained you may start to feel empty. Environments that once felt normal may begin to feel limiting. This is not something to fear. It is a sign that you are evolving. But with that evolution comes a necessary decision. You must choose whether to remain connected to what holds you back or to move forward into what is calling you higher. Letting go does not always mean cutting people off completely. Sometimes it means redefining the relationship. It means adjusting the level of access someone has to your life. Not everyone needs to hear your plans. Not everyone needs to be involved in your decisions. There are people who can remain in your life, but at a distance that protects your focus and your direction. This is not rejection, it is alignment. However, there are also situations where distance alone is not enough. There are connections that consistently pull you away from your purpose, no matter how much you try to manage them. These relationships create cycles that repeat themselves, cycles of negativity, doubt, or emotional strain. You may try to fix them, explain yourself, or make adjustments, but nothing truly changes. At that point, holding on is no longer an act of loyalty, it becomes an act of self-neglect. Releasing such connections requires courage. It is not easy to walk away from familiarity, especially when emotions, memories, or obligations are involved. You may question your decision. You may wonder if you are being too harsh or too distant. But real question you must ask yourself is this: what is the cost of staying? Because every connection in your life has an impact, and if that impact is consistently negative, it will eventually affect your mindset, your confidence, and your ability to move forward. It is important to understand that growth often creates separation. When you begin to think differently, act differently, and aim for something greater, not everyone will understand your path. Some may feel uncomfortable with your change. Others may try to pull you back to what is familiar, not because they want to harm you, but because they are not ready to grow themselves. But you cannot allow someone else's comfort to become the reason you limit your own progress. There is also a difference between helping someone and being held back by them. You can care about people without allowing their struggles to define your direction. You can support others without sacrificing your own stability. True growth requires balance, the ability to show compassion while still protecting your purpose. If helping someone consistently leads to your own exhaustion or confusion, then the situation needs to be reevaluated with honesty. As you begin to let go of what no longer aligns with your growth, you create space for clarity, space for new opportunities, space for healthier relationships. When your environment is no longer filled with constant negativity or distraction, your mind becomes clearer. Your decisions become stronger. You begin to move with intention instead of hesitation. This process also strengthens your sense of self. When you choose growth over comfort, you reinforce your commitment to your own development. You begin to trust yourself more. You realize that you are capable of making difficult decisions for the sake of your future. And that realization builds a level of confidence that cannot be easily shaken. Letting go is not about losing people, it is about finding alignment. It is about recognizing what supports your growth and what interferes with it. And once you begin to make decisions based on that awareness, your life starts to shift in a powerful way. You are no longer controlled by peer, ive, yira, cheka, or emotional attachment alone. Instead, you are guided by purpose, clarity, and a vision for where you are. Going in the end, this journey is not about living in fear of people or constantly questioning. Questioning every relationship, it is about awakening your awareness so you can walk through life with clarity and strength. You have been given a sense of discernment for a reason. And when you begin to trust it, you will no longer be easily misled by appearances, words, or temporary emotions. You will start to see beyond what is shown on the surface and recognize what is truly influencing your life. Every relationship carries weight. Some will lift you, while others will quietly pull you away from who you are meant to become. The difference is not always obvious at first, but over time, it becomes clear through patterns, impact, and the condition of your inner peace. When you learn to observe these things honestly, you position yourself to make decisions that protect your growth rather than compromise it. There is power in choosing peace over pressure, clarity over confusion, and purpose over attachment. It takes strength to step back from what feels familiar, especially when emotions are involved, but growth has always required courage. You cannot step fully into the life ahead of you while holding on to what consistently weakens you. At some point, you must decide that your C, your direction, and your future matter enough to be protected. As you move forward, let your awareness guide you, not your fear. Let your experiences teach you, not trap you. And let your decisions reflect the person you are becoming, not just the connections you are used to. Because when you begin to walk in clarity, when you guard your peace, and when you align yourself with what strengthens you, everything that does not belong in your life will gradually lose its place. Stand firm in your awareness, protect your peace, and never allow anything to pull you away from the purpose you were created to fulfill.